Hello, career thought leaders. Good to see you again today. And we have another session where we're going to be talking about trends and tips and tools, and then, of course, getting your input and questions. So please feel free to say hi in the comments. Let me know that you're here. We're glad that you're here for these conversations. Last time we talked about the use of artificial intelligence in screening, and today we're going to be talking about the use of artificial intelligence in in screening. So last time we talked about the use of artificial intelligence in sourcing, and today we're going to talk about the use of artificial intelligence in screening. And we'll talk a little bit about what that difference is and how that looks. Hi, Deb, good to see you, and why that is important for our resumes as well as the social media advising and profiles that we might be doing with our clients. And if you remember last time, we were talking about sourcing and showed how the AI tools are screening the internet, not just LinkedIn, but the whole internet, which is why it's so important that we think about our clients' overall picture on the digital space, not just LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is just one part of the puzzle that these systems are going out there and looking at the candidates. And part of it's for sourcing, right? They're going out there and finding that information about a client, a candidate, and hopefully presenting them to the hiring manager, or maybe even without our client having to apply. That's kind of the best case scenario, right? Is that these systems are going out there and finding our clients has a matching interests and matching skill sets and presenting them. So if you didn't watch that, it's in the Facebook group and on the YouTube page. It's not on the general Career Thought Leaders Facebook page yet, but I'll get it up there so that you can see that as well. And it goes through all of the sourcing and how AI is used in sourcing. So today, let's start a little bit with that background to talk about what is the process and how is AI used. So this is just one of the tools that I like because it shows the whole hiring funnel and how artificial intelligence and technology in general is being used in the sourcing, in the hiring funnel. So here you have sourcing at the top, which is how do we find people and go out there and get new clients, new candidates into our roles that we aren't seeing. And this is one of the ways that the technology and the developers and users of this technology hope to increase diversity, which of course is a big goal for organizations, especially now when it's been brought to these organizations' attention that they maybe have not been doing as well as they would like to be doing. And they're hoping we can get more diverse applicant pools if we use technology to go out there into places that maybe our recruiters wouldn't think about because they have their own bias, their own process, their own history, and ways of doing things, which may eliminate some diverse candidates from the general pool at the beginning. So I was just reading a fascinating article that one of our colleagues shared about how technology is improving the job descriptions of the people writing them, and that job descriptions oftentimes are biased towards white males. And it's fascinating when you look at the language that they use and just how the bias comes through even in that part of it. So we'll actually look at this website really quickly here in just a minute about this technology that is helping to write more inclusive job descriptions. Then you get into the screening, which is what we're going to talk about today. And we're going to watch a video fascinating about how AI is making applicant tracking systems better, more thoughtful, and less of a one-to-one match. Do you match or not? And the maybe spooky ways that AI is going out there and finding information about our clients that may not even be included on the resume and using that as part of the screening process. And then next week, we're going to talk about AI in interviewing, which we've been hearing a lot about, especially with HireVue, and how is that process working to make interviewing more effective, perhaps less biased, and 24/7. How can I be interviewing someone at any time of the day when my resources might be limited? So we're going to be talking about that next week. Today, focusing on screening as part of this funnel. How is artificial intelligence coming into the screening process? And this is important for our clients to understand the technologies that are used throughout the process in general. So that graphic, I really like that graphic. I don't have the link on hand for that one, so I'll put it in the comments later. But it's a really powerful graphic just to show them the process and how hiring happens, of course, and then what that looks like for their overall job search. So that's how AI is being used in hiring, and we can help our clients understand that. One of the interesting articles that we looked at briefly last time, but I wanted to share it again this time, is this 9 ways that AI is shaping recruiting. And it goes through all of the different ways that AI is being used in the process. One of the important things to realize is that humans are used throughout the process, and we'll hear that in the video that we're going to watch about one of these AI systems that works with applicant tracking systems. But there are humans in the loop all the time. It is not, and in fact, it seems less likely than we might imagine that an AI is actually selecting, or an applicant tracking system, even without AI, is selecting the candidates for the end reviewer. So they're saying these are the top 10, and the recruiter's only looking at the top 10. Turns out that that may not happen as often as we think it should, based on the fact that people are using this technology to make the process better. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're not looking at almost all of the candidates, which is an interesting thought. But that there's just a lot out there that I'm reading, especially from recruiters, about how they work and how they use applicant tracking systems. And it's called an applicant tracking system, right? It's tracking the applicant through the process. That doesn't necessarily mean that it is deciding who gets the FaceTime with that recruiter. So I just want to share this poll with you. This is very not scientific at all, but this is a recruiter who's got 160,000 followers on LinkedIn. Adam, if you're not following him, I would recommend that you do that. He's irreverent, he cusses, so you have to be ready for that. But he's also very straightforward and gives you that recruiter's perspective. And so he is writing here, and he did a poll around that. Do people let the ATS select the top candidates or not? And you can see that 66% of recruiters are saying that they actually review all of the resumes that come in, and only 4% say that the ATS decides who gets looked at by the human. The recruiters are looking at the resumes. So if our client is feeling like the ATS is automatically rejecting them, it's highly unlikely that that is not actually happening, because the recruiter is going to go and look at those ones that might have issues that get kicked out. Now, if our client is answering a kick out question the wrong way, they might get kicked out. If it's asking, do you have 4 years of experience in X, and they say no, it maybe that they're getting kicked out automatically by the system. But thinking that the resume is getting automatically rejected by the system because of formatting or some other issue is probably not reality. It's likely they're not getting called back because of the other reasons we can think of. They aren't targeting their resume. The company already had someone in mind. The company decided to change their thing and went a different direction, or paused the hiring. There's so many other reasons that they might be getting that rejection that has nothing to do with automated screening. And he's also written some posts, especially on Twitter, that say, yep, you got that automatic rejection. And that was me, the person looking at your resume and saying, no, yes, it was fast because that's my job. So of course, that is somewhat of an outlier, but when you look at the responses on his polls, on his posts about this topic, it seems pretty universal that most recruiters are looking at most of the resumes that are submitted into their process. The technology is helping prioritize, perhaps helping rank, and they're training the technology, especially if they're using AI, they're going and looking at the resumes and then providing that feedback to their system, because that's how AI works, is that it's continuously learning and trying to do better. And so they're actually doing the work to train their AI, which is fairly new in most of these systems, to do a better job of reviewing the resume. So how the screening happens and how technology is a partner in that is important for us to recognize, and to help our job seekers recognize that it isn't an automated process for a lot of this, and that a human is likely looking at their documents. If they're getting those rejections, even if they're getting them really quickly, it doesn't necessarily mean that an automated system is making that rejection. Yes, Amy, that's the most encouraging thing I've read all day. Yeah, and we like to blame the ATS. Well, probably not us, but our clients like to blame the ATS, their formatting, and we even see some of stuff in the industry kind of preying on that and saying, oh, it's likely the ATS that you've got to make sure you have the right format. A lot of that is true, and we've got a lot of conversations on ATS. I'll post another link here. There are specific things we want to be careful of, but it's important to dig a little bit deeper and look at what else might be going on, because it's really not that likely that resume formatting is the reason our client is getting rejected by the applicant tracking system. Okay, so let's move on. I love this stuff, sorry. It's so good for us to keep learning, and we don't know until we learn, right? And when I read Adam and some of the stuff that he was posting, I thought, well, that changes my perception, that changes my mind about what's going on, and now I can help my clients even more, and that's what we're here to do, to learn so that we can help them learn and to share the best information that we can provide at the time. So I talked about this article. We'll just look at it briefly. And I'm going to post this in the comments before we go away. So this is that LinkedIn article that shares kind of the process about how AI is used throughout the process. But one of the other pieces here is this. Sorry, let me make sure I pull up the right thing. So there's a couple of articles that were interesting in this area, and I think this is the one that we're going to look at next. Ooh, Headstart. So this is a link from an article that Emily Wong, one of our ACRWs, shared in the Career Thought Leaders Facebook group. And this link was in that article talking about this company that is also trying to make the hiring process less biased. I think it's interesting that when we look at technology in the hiring process, we think, oh, that's going to be flawed. That's going to ruin it all. Whereas when you look at the data about human bias in the process, it is disturbing. It is so frustrating. And if technology can help even a little bit eliminate that bias, bring it on. Let's try it, because our clients, our companies deserve the best people. And there's so much human chatter in our minds that prevents all of us, no matter what our background is, we all have this chatter that prevents us from being objective. And this technology is trying to help do that. Will it accomplish that? I don't know, but I would like to give it a chance, because the data around human bias is really discouraging. So why not? Let's give it a chance. And this company talks about, this is the one where they talk about how their system is screening job descriptions. So starting at the very beginning of the process to tell the hiring manager if they're giving that information to the client in a way that is discriminatory from the very beginning. So these technologies are really trying to do this. They're trying to help companies eliminate the bias and make meaningful change. We don't have a video on this one, so we're not going to watch it, but I'd encourage you to check out this company, check out the technology, see what's going on, and the positives of it, because our clients can get really bogged down in the negatives, especially of the interviewing technology that we'll look at next week. But here's the positives, here what they're trying to do with it, and we can help them see some of those positives by sharing some of this information. So that one is mostly looking at the job descriptions and then some of the hiring as well. And if you have any others that you've seen, feel free to share them. I'd love to see any other technologies that you're seeing coming onto the market. And like I said, that article that Emily shared was from IEEE about the other technologies that are being used to try to reduce bias. Last thing here on this part of it is this video from a company called Ideal. And I love this because they've got this whole little guide on how AI is used in the process. And they're kind of telling recruiters, you know, this can help you screen your applicant pool. So 52% of recruiters say the hardest part of recruiting is a large applicant pool. We know that applicant pools have gotten even larger since COVID hit, and recruiters need a way to prioritize and move through that applicant pool as quickly as possible. Again, not meaning that they're not looking at all the applicants, but anyways, let's look at this video about how this company's system works. And you'll hear them talk about it's not even just the resume, that they're actually going and finding information beyond that resume to screen the applicant.
Hi, my name is Sylvan Mondell. I am the CEO and co-founder of Ideal. We're a virtual assistant that uses artificial intelligence to help make a recruiter's job easier. Essentially, what we do is we take repetitive tasks that can be automated, and we use artificial intelligence to automate those tasks, such as screening resumes or sourcing candidates. So when we build Ideal, we really look at what does a recruiter do day to day, and we try and replicate some of that inside of our assistant. Once Ideal gets a resume in, we go out and find out more information that is not on that resume. So we can look up information about the companies and skills that the person has, and augment the data so that the machine learning can improve and really thoroughly understand the contents of a resume. This can happen automatically. For instance, when a candidate that we think you should interview is not interviewed for whatever reason. Or it can happen explicitly, where a recruiter comes in and says, no, you know what, I don't agree with that grade, and I think it should be this. And all of that data feeds into our artificial intelligence, and the system gets better and better and better over time. Ideal removes every trace of subconscious bias from that initial screening process. We ensure that you start with the most diverse candidate pool possible, so you have the best possible chances of having a diverse workforce and hiring the most diverse workforce. Certain parts of the resume we actually remove from our training set. For example, gender, age, the person's name even. These are information that can be used to discriminate against people. We go out of our way to make sure that your recruiters can use the system as easily as possible. So we'll plug into your applicant tracking system, and we'll automatically pull in new candidates as they apply for roles. And then we'll go and use our artificial intelligence to grade that candidate either an A, B, C, or D. That information and some more information, if possible, is sent back to your applicant tracking system, and recruiters can just use those tags and filters within your existing ATS to narrow down on who the best candidates are.
So it's interesting to see what they're doing, what the system is doing, and it's saying, you know, it's going out and picking data that's not necessarily on the resume. It's just fascinating to think about what they're doing. And then at the end, you know, kind of some bold claims about removing all unconscious bias, but that's what they're trying to do, right? They're trying to eliminate those pieces of information that might cause bias at the very beginning of the screening process, hoping that then by the time that person gets further along in the process, the hiring manager and the recruiter are more thoughtful about what they're doing. Most of the time when we think about unconscious bias, it's happening in that split second when we're reviewing 100 resumes and we've got to make that decision really quickly. And if we can get them through those parts, our candidates that have diversity that might be biased against for whatever reason, then hopefully we can get them to the next step, which would be the interview. And as I said, we'll look at that next week in terms of how does that apply and why are they using technology to try to speed up the process, make it more accessible, and perhaps eliminate that bias. So an interesting system, I'll put that in the link in the comments here too, so that you have their video if you want to go back and watch it again, or do a little bit more research on what their system is. That was ideal. And interesting that they're saying they can use that along with an applicant tracking system, because it really is the kind of the technology behind it, the AI coming in, doing the machine learning to learn what the recruiter wants, and the recruiter's interacting with it, right? The recruiter's saying, even though they scored this one a D, I'm interviewing it because of this reason. And they're training the AI to get better candidates the next time. That's the hope. And that's why the recruiters are still interacting with the system to train it to get better information and to make sure that they're not missing something in the applicant pool. So what does this mean for our clients in terms of their resumes and social media presence? Obviously, we're talking about that resume matters because they are looking at the information there, and the applicant tracking system needs to be able to read the resume. That doesn't have to be as challenging as sometimes we can make it, right? It's that it's simple enough that they can read it. One of the lists that I've made in the past is the things that people often think don't work in ATS that actually do, and those would be formatting, shading, bold, underlines, borders, even tables, simple tables. One row will work in most applicant tracking systems. And so you can create a nice resume. You can even have graphics, as long as that graphic, when it's removed, doesn't have any of your critical text in it. So you can use a graphic, sales graph or whatever, and as long as that text is in the text part of the resume, that graphic will disappear as far as the ATS is concerned, but all the other content will still get read. So you can create resumes that are pleasing to the human eye and still work in applicant tracking systems, and just being careful about how much we blame, especially the formatting for that applicant tracking system, removing our client. Now, there are some systems that you can use to kind of grade your resume against a job description. And I will encourage you to be thoughtful about how you use those systems, because most of those systems, they're starting to get better, but a lot of them don't use AI. They use more of a one-to-one matching system with the entire job description and the resume. So what that means is that if I put in a whole job description, and let's say that that job description uses a word over and over again because that word is part of the department name. So I was just doing a trial with this, and I will do this inside our Facebook group. I don't want to do it publicly because I don't want to do either a promo or a tear down of any of these systems. So we'll schedule a time to do that inside of our Facebook group. And if you're not a part of that Facebook group, it's free. It's available for any career service provider. It's not a job search group. It's just for career service providers. But I would encourage you to join that group, and we'll do kind of a show and tell on some of these systems inside the group, where it's not quite so out there in terms of saying things about these systems. I would just say here that we want to be thoughtful about how much we listen to that system, because I was going through and doing this example where the person's department was called the technologist group, but they were actually a marketing person and they were just applying to that group. So when I put in that job description and their resume, they got a very low grade because their resume didn't include the word technologist. I don't care if their resume includes the word technologist, because that's not going to be the screening words programmed into the applicant tracking system. What screening words are most likely to be put into the applicant tracking system? The sourcing, the parsing system, the job titles, the hard skills, maybe technologies, specific technologies that are also in the job description, but it's not going to be all the words in the job description. It's going to be the words in the job description that are critical to see if that someone is qualified. So degrees, certifications, technologies, hard skills, and job titles being probably the most important, and they're going to be looking for that. So when I'm looking at these systems that score a resume, and the one that I was looking at is getting better because now it says these keywords are the most important, but there's still some discrepancy there. There's still error there that we as humans, as coaches for our clients, as resume writers, or even if you're a candidate and you're watching this and you're frustrated because you got this great resume put together and now this scoring system is saying that it doesn't score well, look at that very critically and think about what the scoring system is saying isn't a match. And does that make sense as something for you to worry about? If so, then yes, change it. If not, don't let that get under your skin, because that system may say your resume needs to be a 70% or an 80%, and it's not. But if that job description is throwing the system off, you can decide that on your human brain and know that you're doing okay, that you're gonna be okay. The other way to make those systems more effective is to gather a pool of job descriptions and scrub them for those terms that are not as important, the names of departments, the names of companies. Make sure you're not putting company descriptions in the system, etc., to really scrub it down to the most important information in the job description. Put 2 or 3 together and then put it into that system along with your resume, and you'll get a better idea of the score and things that might be missing on your resume. Hi, Nicolette, good to see you. And then Murray, yes. Ooh, AI to grade and educate their talent acquisition and hiring teams. Yeah, and I wonder if that system that we were looking at just a little bit ago, the which one did I put in here? The Headstart. It kind of sounded like they were on that side of the house, Murray, where they were trying to help HR people look at job descriptions and decide, is this going to be inclusive or not? Which is maybe a little piece of helping the HR team see if they're being aware of diversity issues or not. Excellent. And Nicolette's having a debate with a client over, I'm guessing, a scoring system, because we were just talking about scoring systems. Yeah, I was having a debate with a resume writer because the resume writer was going through our ACRW training program. And she said, you know, Marie, my resume scores higher when I put in results-oriented, excellent communicator. No applicant tracking system is going to be programmed to score on those words. So I'm sorry that the matching system, the public commercial trying to get people to fix their resumes system is telling you that it's better. But we know, based on our knowledge and our strategy, that it's not going to help them in an applicant tracking system, even though the matching system says, yes, it's better. So we're thinking about that and thinking about what those systems actually can do and what they can't do. And they are getting better because they're starting to use AI. So Tom, yeah, these are exactly the systems that I'm talking about. We can go on, we can use them for what they're useful for, and be critical thinkers about when they might be wrong, because they can be wrong, and they can tell us to do things that aren't necessarily helpful. Like my marketing person that it wanted to put technologist in to make it stronger, that wasn't going to help that person, even though that was in the job description that I happened to have that I was putting in. So get better input in terms of the job description, not just the resume, then you'll get better output. And you can do that with any of these systems. Are going to have this probably the same bad side effects, if you will, right now, until they get smarter, they get better at doing what we want them to do. If you are looking for a way to do that free, I still use a Wordle, put in the job description with all the stuff scrubbed, put in the resume, and it's not as good. It's not as, technically complete as some of those systems, but you get the same idea that these are the most important words in the job description. This is what my resume is saying, and I can look at the two Wordles and do a comparison. It's simple, more simplistic, it's free, and to me, depending on what your goal is, you can achieve some of the same outputs. So whatever works for you and your clients, but I would not would help them to not get frustrated by those systems because they're not 100% and they are just looking at matching. They're not looking at what would actually be programmed in the applicant tracking system. And I wouldn't pay for it. I know some of you do, and that's great. Go for it. I would not pay for it. I would not have my clients pay for it because we can get that same feel in a lot of different ways. Now, I did want to show you one other thing in LinkedIn, and because in LinkedIn has started doing more with their AI to match people to jobs. And so when I'm looking at jobs in LinkedIn, jobs right here. When I'm looking at jobs in LinkedIn, I can see the skills that the applicants have in a premium account. So I don't know that I'd necessarily recommend your clients get a premium account, but they could do an upgrade for a little bit to see what they might be able to see and get the free trial. Because when you look at these jobs, it tells you the top skills of the people that are applying to that job. It's the number one thing I use my premium account for when I'm doing a client's LinkedIn profile. There's, they can type in any skill they want, and LinkedIn will suggest the skills. But if I really want to make sure that they are hitting on the skills that their competition is using, I'm going to go look at a few job descriptions and make a list of the skills that the other candidates for these job descriptions have. I like this feature of LinkedIn, and I know that it's going to help my client get found in that LinkedIn search if I'm using the skills that the recruiter is going to be searching, because that's what their top candidates have. So this is one of the other features, whether you get a free trial or you get a premium, or you have your client get a free trial so that they can do this research and have the opportunity to see what the skills are for the other top applicants. And you can see that this is a premium feature up here on the left. Oops, let me show that to you. So when you're in a job description in LinkedIn, and this of course only works in LinkedIn, and if you have a premium account, you can see the top skills for the applicants that have also applied for the position. You have to have 10 applicants for a position, but if I did a little bit of research for each client, found 3 or 4 jobs that they're looking for that have this applicant, doesn't have to be in their geography, as long as it's in the right industry and the right position, I can find a good list of skills that we can make sure we're including, of course, in their resume, but also in their LinkedIn profile to help them get found through these automated sourcing and screening systems. All right, so that is our thoughts around the use of AI in our screening process. So we've got the AI in sourcing and making sure that our clients have a strong digital brand, because remember, there's some proactive things that could happen there for them as this technology evolves. It might be scary, but let's use it to our clients' benefit and make sure that they have the right content in all of their profiles, LinkedIn being the number one, but also you've got Facebook being used by 66% of screeners, as well as Instagram growing. 2 years ago, it was 25% of recruiters using Instagram. So I'm guessing that that's going to be even higher when the new data comes out. And so we want to help our clients have that good digital presence, as well as a resume that matches the job descriptions that they're aiming for in those critical areas of hard skills, titles, and maybe some of the more, hard soft skills, if you will, the ones that are really going to be differentiating, and the credentials, degrees, qualifications, those differentiating things that you could see someone programming into an applicant tracking system. That's really what we're watching out for. And using the premium account for LinkedIn. Like I said, you can have your client get a free trial, or you could get a free trial and see if you think it's worth it based on the number of clients that you work with. Really helping our clients make sure that they have the right skills in their resumes and in their LinkedIn profiles, which isn't rocket science, right? We know that we can look at a job description, pick that job description apart. Better yet, even if we have 3 or 4 job descriptions, pick it apart, put it into Wordle, use those systems that Tom put into the chat for us, and we can build something that speaks to the right qualifications. And then if they're getting rejected, we know that there's a lot of other reasons that they might be getting rejected from that applicant tracking system. Might be a screen out question, but it also might be because there was someone else already in mind. There was someone that someone else knew. All of the other job search strategies that we help our clients do are because we know that applicant tracking systems are just a little part of the process, even though they might get a big amount of the publicity, especially sometimes when we're talking about why someone gets rejected. Thank you, and we'll be talking next week about using applicant tracking, or using AI in interviewing. And I'm just fascinated by this and have some research to share with you. And we'll look at another video of how it works, in case you didn't see this video that was posted about a year ago, so that we can see how the system works. We will see you next week.